You ready? Okay, thanks, guys. We could get into you guys have been. I wondered if you had a list, but I guess I'm so old school I forget everything's probably already digital and posted and out there anyway. Guys that have signed. So just a quick overview. But a lot of work put into it. We're still not done as we speak. There's still a few more that may come in today and a few more that may happen tomorrow. And then, of course, you got your portal period coming up in January where we'll probably take maybe 12 to 15 guys. And then there's another signing period in February, which we may have room for a few more guys then. But I think I just counted up as we walked in here, somewhere like 43 or 44 guys from 24 states. So, I mean, it's a big class. There used to be a limit, of course, on it, and now there's not. And, being from a smaller state, we cast a wider net. So I thought our guys did a good job with that. Obviously we had a lot of needs, a lot of things to fix, and the best way to fix them is get a bunch of really good players, and we thought we did that. Creating some competition. Obviously, being part of the rev share and being committed to that has helped and is going to help us when the next cycle or with the portal cycle as well. So I've got to make sure part of my job is to help raise money. I got a lot of good people in here that work for us that help us raise the money for that too. So anyway, I think there's every position. I got a list in front of me, got addressed. And again, there's still some more to come. We're also on our current roster. I've had one team meeting and told our guys that we're going to be, everybody's going to have some exit meetings with their position coaches and talk about the guys that are returning, exactly what their status is and what's going on. We're going to have to make some tough decisions going forward with some of the guys on the roster. And then there's others that may choose to leave on their own or something like that. So there's still quite a, this is such a fluid situation these days in college sports. So we're navigating through all that.
So Rich, three-parter to start basic. What were your biggest needs? Do you feel you met them? And are there needs still left out there?
Yeah, it was every position. I mean, obviously, we had a bad year and disappointed with a lot of stuff that went on, but not discouraged from the standpoint of that. There were some things that were positive and feel very confident that we can fix our problems. That's my job, to fix our problems. So, and it starts fixing problems with personnel. And we needed. We had some seniors, had a bunch of seniors, and they played hard, but we tried to, as opposed to last year, I wasn't even here yet. We were, a little late on the high school and junior college cycle, and so we, to fill our roster, we went portal heavy and brought some guys in, a lot more one-year guys that I would ever want to have. But now, having been here a year, you don't have to do as many. You still can, and we will, but not nearly to the extent we went last year, where we had so many guys that we had for a year or less than a year. Now we thought we could get that caliber player that's a freshman or a junior college guy coming in with this class. And so it starts up front. We still, again, there's going to be a handful of portal guys that we're going to go after in January because we need some grown men at certain spots. But we got, I think, a couple really high future potential all-conference guys on the O-line that we signed. We signed a couple athletic quarterbacks. We needed a bunch of wideouts and guys that can run. We got that. Got a couple tight ends. Still going to need a couple more tight ends. We got a couple tight ends in there. Address a little bit of D-line. We've got more of that's got to come. Linebacker, we got a bunch of linebackers that we signed. Secondary was almost all new. It's going to be almost all new, and so we signed some guys from there as well. And then running back, we need a few there, and there's still maybe a couple more that might happen. we're hopeful. So I guess to answer your question, a long question, we got needs everywhere. We're trying to address it, and we're going nonstop. And everybody talks about recruiting. It is an everyday thing, and it used to be the East signing date was the culmination of it, but now with 2 signing dates and a portal period, it's a culmination of one part of the process, but there's still a lot of work to be done before we finalize our roster for next year.
How many of these guys you expect to get in January?
I think 35 or so. I'm not sure. Maybe Raquel can help me. 5%. Yeah, a big number of that. And then again, with the portal window is close to when our semester starts, but we think we can get 7 or 8 portal guys at least in as well. So you're talking about 40-some guys that should be here by the second semester, which is good. Obviously you go through spring practice. I keep waiting for the NCAA because there's talk about the calendar changing where you could have practices in the summer as well, but that's not been finalized. So, but we do think majority of the class we signed today are early enrollees.
You mentioned not really being able to do this high school-wise recruiting last year at West Virginia. 43, 44, 45 kids. Is that going to be the plan for the rest of the tenure, or is that because you didn't get to do it last year? What should fans expect?
Yeah, ideally, I think the fans expect us to win. So
sure. How
you know what I mean. And so, how do we get there, right? I think going forward, everybody says, "Are you a developmental program?" I think if you say you're not, like what are you thinking about? Every program should be a developmental program. The idea certainly would be if you had a choice to get the same guy player-wise that's got 1 year left or 4 years left, you're going to take the guy who's got 4 years left because he'll grow in your program and do all that. So that's the thought process. If the guy that's got 1 year left or 2 years left is a whole lot better player or is more ready to go right now than the other guy, then you got to take that guy. So we weigh all that into there. The ideal thing would be to get more, at least 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 freshmen or JC guys compared to the 1 year or 2 year transfer guys. And it's probably least expensive or lesser cost to get the high school guy because they're unproven yet at the college level. And the portal guys seem to be more expensive, and you got to pay more to get the true experienced plug-and-play starter guy out of the portal.
This is shaping up to be one of the, or if not the highest rated recruiting class since these different outlets started tracking the recruiting rankings. How important is that?
Well, I mean, it's kind of fun to look at if you're a fan. I think it depends like who's rating them. Like if a certain school offers a kid, all of a sudden that kid went from a 3-star to a 4-star or a 4-star to 5-star because this blue blood offered him a scholarship. You know what I mean? So some of that you ain't sure, but a lot of those rankings turned out to be accurate in some respects. I mean, but I don't get paid to win being a top 25 in the recruiting rankings. I get paid to be in the top 25 at the end of the season, playing in the conference championship and getting ready for a playoff. So our thought process is not like, this guy will jump our ratings up. Is he going to help us win? Now, I've told y'all before, every decision I make and we make is based on does it help us win? Does it make us better? And it's as simple. Everything that we are doing now, and this is no different now because of this season or if we had, a 12-0 season, everybody and everything gets evaluated every day. But especially when I have more time now because we're getting ready for a bowl game, I got more time to evaluate. That's good, but it's also, it could, make people nervous, which is okay.
The calendar this year, did it make things crazier, the dynamics to it, or was it?
It should be, yeah. If we were doing what we're supposed to do and playing in a bowl game or a championship game, it would make it a heck of a lot crazier. For us, we've had nothing else to do but recruit in the last 4 days, right? But the reality of what the calendar was, we had an open date before our last game. The last couple weeks, most coaches would tell you right before this, a week or 2 weeks before the signing period is usually the most hectic. Last night, you can imagine when we're we're on phones with guys until 2 or 3 in the morning. I mean, and then all day today. And so, but we didn't have anything else to do. Hell, we're not practicing for a bowl game. So I would hope everybody in our situation was working the phones hard.
Did you have a number in the back of your mind of how many guys that you were willing to take that were going to take a little longer to develop in your program as opposed to needing to play right away?
You mean from this class or last?
Yeah, from
year?
this class, yeah. And all these guys.
You know, I don't. You know, that's a good question. Every guy, I tell everybody, and this is not. I'm sure other coaches tell them the same way. I said, listen, I don't ever guarantee a guy that, hey, as soon as you come on campus, you're going to you start, because that wouldn't be fair to you or the guys on the team. Yet we don't recruit anybody to be backups. How would we get better if we recruited a guy and say, well, you're probably going to be a backup developmental guy and play in a year or two? Well, no. I tell our coaches, recruit guys you think are as good or better than what we got. And you don't know for sure till you get them, but you better have a decent idea of it. And the competitiveness, I think, is what we have lacked a little bit here. And not to our guys that they didn't, but I want a competitive environment in every day. And the best way to compete, the best way to have that true competitive environment is have a bunch of players that are pretty good competing to be the starter or playing time at that spot. And we didn't have enough of that this year. But some of the reason we didn't have that this year is because guys got hurt. You know, that's bad luck. But when you get 3 guys in front of you get hurt, and there's only you or one other guy to play at that position, they ain't real competitive. You know, we've got to hopefully get that solved.
Would you give me your insight in the recruitment of Kevin Brown and Matt Sieg?
Kevin had kind of found out early as soon as we got here because his dad Tim, played for me, and no brainer. And then we kept, he's committed to Penn State, and we said, well, let's just come down, have him come down to camp, and he did. And then guys like him a lot of times don't want to work out. Well, Kevin was just the opposite. I mean, he was doing every drill and all that, and it made my feelings hurt even more after watching him work out, because this dude he's a monster, right? And he worked hard. I'm like, I said, all that did was like, we got to get him somehow, because you saw him at camp and he was everything you thought it would be. And I'm like, hey, at least he came here, and let's just keep plugging away. And then, when they had their change up there, it gave a little bit of a crack to do that. And then when we got him and his whole family came down, it was a great visit. Not a good visit, a great visit. And it was good to see his dad and his family. And, he's everything you want in a football player, and I think everything you want from a guy as well. So worked hard at it. My coaches, Travis, did a great job, because he had a connection there as well. And so that was a key piece, because not because the rankings or whatever, it's just because this guy is a really, really good football player, and he has the mentality that you want your players to have. It's like it's all about ball. He ain't worried about all the fluff stuff, and not that you could be like all that other stuff and still be a really good player, but he wasn't about all the drama, and that was so he was a priority from day one. But after we saw him in person and knew we had a shot, it became like, Travis and I say, hey, we gotta do what we can,
So what about Matt Sieg?
Yeah, Matt was the same way. I think he was solidly committed to Penn State, and every time we would talk to people in Western Pennsylvania, like, this guy is the talk of the whole state, and everybody in Western Pennsylvania knew him. And you watch him play, and it's like he's dynamic. He can play a bunch of different positions, and we weren't sure we were in it, and we tried to be. And then there's a little bit of a crack in there again, what happened up there, and so we got a chance to stay in it, and I think he probably saw there's probably a great opportunity for him at safety. And I told him, I said, I think you're good enough to play that, but also help us on the other side of the ball as well, which he's good enough to do. He's a coach's kid. He's smart. You could tell that he's been coached well, and he's 45 minutes up the road, in Fort Cherry. So we made a hard late run at it, last 24, 48 hours, and staff did a good job with it, Coach Alley and the guys, and he's going to be a whole lot of fun for our fans to watch over his career here.
How much do you think giving him a chance to play offense impacted getting him? Because
Yeah, I think maybe
the coaches didn't want.
I think he peeled it to him a little bit. I don't like. We're going to have. I've said it to y'all before. We're going to have multiple guys, and we've signed multiple guys that have a chance, I think, to help both ways because the roster size is going to be limited going forward, and so you're going to have guys that can play both ways. You know, Curtis did it a little bit this year out of necessity, but. You know, I just even like a guy like Noah Tischendorf, right? We signed him as a defensive, what is he, an outside backer, DN kind of guy. He'll be a fullback and a tight end for us too. I mean, he can do that. He's a tough guy. And there's several of our guys that are athletes that'll play. They might play running back. They may play slot receiver. They may play outside. They may do a little bit of defense. You know, we signed some guys with that in mind, and we have a couple more we're still looking at. You know, we signed 2 in-state guys, right? Malachi Thompson, who's I think he's 6'4", he's out of Nitro, great ball skills. He's going to have a great career. And then Xavier Anderson, you know, Xavier's brother's on the team. Max, who's a great young man. And we thought Xavier was one of the best athletes in the state, committed to another place, and we stayed on him because we were hoping he'd want to stay home. And, you know, he's a guy that's can play tight end and wide out for us, but he's also a really, really good pass rusher. So I think he's going to be a guy that probably can play a little bit too, both ways.
Rich, what qualities do you look for in a high school quarterback, and is being a dual threat a non-negotiable to you?
Not really. I mean, if a guy's an exceptional thrower, you know, he's going to complete 80% of his passes, and he's got just enough awareness to get out of a sack once in a while, that's fine. But if a guy can, I guess, be a true dual threat, where as far as, you know, his ability to run and, you know, make a 5-yard play into a 50-yard play or what have you, that's even better. You know, and the guys we sign all can run, but they all can throw as well. So that's a good thing. But even the guys we got back, like Scotty Fox is a better runner and athlete than he probably gets credit for. You know, he can throw the heck out of it, but he can run a little bit too. So the guys we sign in this class are good throwers, but they're elite runners, and so we'll see how that shakes out.
How much do the people that you guys know factor into what you brought in? I know New Orleans is a place you're familiar with, different places.
Yeah, the guys from New Orleans that got on, you know, used to go there quite a bit, and I know the school where we got the 2 guys from, I know their coaches and know the school, but we haven't really gone in there. I haven't gone in there. I used to go all the time when I had Calvin McGee on my staff. You know, Calvin was the guy. And I told the coach down there at Edna Card, he got one of the best programs in the state. I said, man, we're dropping the ball, not like, because you don't really area recruit as much anymore. But I said, we need to have a presence down there because we know people down there. They know West Virginia. And, you know, I've had a long-standing relationship with a lot of those high school coaches. And so we'll probably kind of go to New Orleans every year now because a lot of those guys, if they're not getting an LSU offer, they'll go anywhere because there's no other Power 4 team in the state. And Louisiana high school football is really good. So we got a couple of guys from one of the best teams in the state from there.
Rich, Saturday you said that you knew what you had to do to fix it. I'm guessing today is a start, but are there players or positions that you think today pushes you toward the fixing?
I would say at every position, really. I'm not just doing coach speak. And it's the same thing's true, like, if you're going to ask where are we going in the portal, because we've been meeting about that, like when the portal opens up, which positions are we addressing? Everyone. Every position. Now, quarterback, you're not going to take like 3 or 4 guys, but we're going to look for 3 or 4 offensive linemen. We're going to look for 4 or 5 defensive linemen. We're going to look for 3 or 4 linebackers. We're going to look for 3 or 4 secondary guys. We're going to look for a couple wide receivers and maybe even a running back. So every position in the portal is going to get, you know, we're going to try to bring somebody in too. So it's, you know, you don't want to have to flip the entire roster, but we won't have, the good part this time next year, we're not going to have 40 seniors or whatever the number is to replace. You know, so we'll hopefully if we've evaluated right, you know, we're going to have a lot more guys returning that'll get better. And if we do our job, which our guys will do in development and all that, you know, the guys that we bring, all these young guys we're bringing in, they're going to be a better player a year from now and a better player a year from that. and then you're rock and rolling.
Then, for as much as you covet speed, that's a huge myth sometimes of recruiting. Like, what's a laser time? What's a regular 40 time? I don't even know if you care about that, but how do you gauge speed? Okay.
Everybody wants fast guys, and you could nowadays you could probably get a little better barometer on it because of the GPS thing. And a guy runs, hey, this guy runs 21 mile an hour, or 20 mile an hour, and some of the 40 times, if they have verified 40 times at camps, you could find that out now. So it's easier now to get a legit time, but I still think the film watching is the most important thing. Like, whatever it says that their camp times, whatever it says that their speed time is, you still got to watch the film and see what kind of football player is. Is he chasing? Is he running by people? Is he make somebody miss? Is he physical? So we're never going to take a guy without watching his film and seeing if he's a good football player. You know what I mean? You could take a guy off measurables, but if he can't play, it doesn't make any difference. So it's a combination of things, and there's a certain size. Like, we weren't big enough on the O-line, D-line, and we got to get bigger. We weren't big enough at linebacker. We got to get more length. That was part of our process there. We weren't big enough at corner. Our guys battled, but sometimes a taller guy was just, you saw it, but just jump over you and get it. And so we try to address some of those issues with some of the size things that we got in this class.
You mentioned Malachi Thompson. People that will you talk about some people that may be leaving one form or another. So in your next step of recruiting, what you're talking about now, is there a group of guys that you say, hey, we might be losing 2 more defensive linemen or 2 more wide receivers? These will be the next guys we might take at those spots?
No, we're the ones because we like to be brutally honest with our guys because we don't want to string them along and then 2 weeks from now say, listen, you got a spot here. We're going to tell them you have a spot or you don't have a spot here. And then there are a handful of guys that frankly are going to be called to task a little bit and saying, listen, you are like, you need to show us in the next month or so, or whatever, 2 months that you're right for our program, or you're gonna have to find a spot, and some of those guys, that's not that it's a terrible attitude, but if everybody's not like, disciplined and focused and doing the right things the right way and all that, then I ain't gonna mess with them. They got to go somewhere else, and we don't have a lot of those problems, but there are a few guys that are going to be up against it, and they have the ability to make it right and have a great career here. But they also could mess up, and then they'll have to do their career somewhere else.
Coach, you mentioned Malachi Thompson there very briefly, but 6'4", about 215. What stood out to you and your staff whenever you guys were recruiting him?
Well, he got great ball skills, and you watch him. One of the hardest workers. You watch him, even guys that have watched him practice and seen him. He's a grinder. He loves football, and he's been I think he's been up here at every game. He's all into the Mountaineers, and I think I'm really excited about him. I thought he was one of the best in our state in the last couple of years. And there's been, like I said, we have such a small state that people would wonder, why do we recruit West Virginia more? We are recruiting the state, but it's such a small state that you have to go outside to really fill your roster. But there's a couple others that we're still looking at in state as well. But he was one that stood out from the jump, and this is from our first spring here through the summer and all that kind of stuff. I think we have a couple more to add, don't we, Raquel? Not yet? Okay.
Can you talk a little bit about, you've got a couple of the top JUCO receivers committed, like 3 of the top 15 JUCO DBs, a top running back. Can you talk a little bit about the focus on the heavy JUCO recruiting this cycle and what you think that brings?
Yeah, it wasn't really intentional like JUCO, like let's get JUCO guys. Just let's find the best players you can get. The portal don't open until January. And you can look at maybe this guy might be in a portal, this guy might be in a portal, you don't know. The smaller school portal guys that are in right now, so you evaluate them. But you don't really know for sure the portal guys. So our guys are looking for the best players they can find, whether high school, JC. probably the JC talent. We're finding guys that maybe get overlooked a little bit, where in the past they weren't when the portal wasn't so active. More JCs get recruited, and we're finding there's some really good, talented players that maybe get overlooked a little bit in JC. Not that they have to be an overlooked guy for us to get them, but there's some really good JC programs out there. And one thing I found out about the junior college guys is when you get them, they're not spoiled. They're like, you give them a free meal, they're like, hey, are you kidding? This is great. You give them a T-shirt this week, are you kidding me? You know what I mean? So JC guys are used to grinding a little bit, and they come to a place like us and see all our facilities and all the stuff that our guys get, and they're like, God, hey, how can I be part of this? So I've really enjoyed the JCs, and there's a couple of JC programs like Hutchinson and all that who they do a great job with their guys. They make sure they work hard, they graduate, get their 2-year degrees. So there's a lot of really good junior college programs that prep their guys to play at this level.
So I know you always have to have players defend their position to be able to return to that position, but is it sustainable to have position battles for the whole roster every year, or is that just because of the
year? Yeah, every year. I like it. You gotta learn your spot every day. It's like nothing's like you earn a starting job. That's great. You gotta earn it again every week. I mean, there's no. Here I tell you, the worst thing could happen to a program is if entitlement seeps in, and it's not going to happen here. We will not have a sense of entitlement. That doesn't mean a guy can't prove himself and all that. He can, but if you're the starter and you not play well or you do something wrong, whatever, then we hope we have somebody that's close to your ability to go in there. But either way, you got to earn it. You got to earn success here at West Virginia. That's
Coach,
kind of.
would you like to see the NCAA do something about these dates where coaches aren't in the middle of preparing for a game and also having to deal with all this?
Yeah, I mean, I know.
See
If I was
dates.
playing for a conference championship game, and this was which I was doing last year, and everybody else was off recruiting, we were playing for a game. You lose a little bit of time of that, but you're playing for a championship game. That's a pretty good deal. I'm happy I'm in the game. I'd rather be playing a game this week than just recruiting. And so, when is like you just recruit now? I mean, if you didn't recruit every day since the last signing day, then you're behind anyway. You know what I mean? So it ain't like what's the counter? You recruit every day. Every day you recruit. Every day you recruit. And maybe you do other things on top of that, and your recruiting staff just as recruiting, and as a position coach, you do a little bit of recruiting and a little bit of coaching. But there's no easy answer to it. Like coaches are complaining, like move the calendars, whatever. I mean, I think the whole thing could looked at like the NFL model. I've said this forever. Why does college football or college football in general, not look at the NFL timeline, the model, how they do everything, all right, and try to adapt ours as close to that as possible? They've done it for years, and they're pretty successful at it. Yet for some reason, the colleges have a whole different framework on how they with their timeline and all that kind of stuff. So I think in that regard they should look at it in totality. But no matter when you're going to do it, it's not a great time. I think so.
You've worked so hard to get all these guys from all the different places. Is it going to be just as hard to get them adjusted and adapted to Morgantown and getting all these young guys here?
Here's what I think, and again, I'm from this state, so I think I know West Virginia pretty well. I said, we're one of our top aspects of our state is we embrace tourism, right? It's one of our big industries in our state. We have a small state, but we've got a beautiful state. We got great people, great places to visit. And so I always tell them, I said, and that's the same way with our school, West Virginia. We have as many out of state. I don't know what the ratio is, more out of state than in-state students, right? We got a lot more guys on our team from out of state than in-state because we're such a small state that we don't have as many Division I Power 4 players as a bigger state would have. But when you come here, and they all shake their head when I talk to them, I'm talking about parents and players, I said, isn't people really friendly? Isn't this a great place to visit? And I said, they're not just putting on a show. That's what West Virginia is. When you go anywhere in this state, you're going to run into great people. I said this, it's not the movie Wrong Turn. You know what I mean? Don't, that ain't it. I think that was made in Georgia anyway or somewhere. I don't know where it's made, but I said, you come to West Virginia, and they're like, isn't it really neat? Isn't it a pretty state? Isn't it great people? And they say, yeah. And I said, what's different or unique is that the more you come back, you find out something you like that you didn't notice the first time you were there. So I'm really, it really tickles me when folks come here for the first time, and I said, how'd you like your visit? And they really, I didn't think it was going to be like this. Well, it's because we've got great people in the state. Hold on, no, still can't.
You're running behind.
Huh?
They're running behind. The school's running behind.
Oh, the school's running behind.
Yeah. Other family shows.
Okay. Well, I thought we might have one or two more to add to the list, and you guys could be the first ones to know about it. So,
Kill the time.
I'll give you 5 more minutes.
I have one.
Why not? You may not be ready by then, huh? Well, now I already promised you 5 minutes. Then go ahead.
You can answer slowly then. How's that? Only one question. Do you handle quarterback differently in the portal because just the nature of that position and how guys go? Because you have young players, you could have continuity, but you had so many injuries last year. You might want to add to the room too.
Yeah, you would think that the quarterback position is usually because you can only play one at a time, and that's everybody wants to know who else you got. But I always tell them, I said, you shouldn't worry about that. Like shouldn't worry about the depth chart no matter what position. You have enough confidence in yourself. And if we bring you on, it's because we think you can play here. But I would hope that we would never have another year where you have so many injuries at quarterback position and running back position. And that was, you think, an outlier, but at the same time, and I think mostly for quarterbacks, they usually get in the portal because they want to go somewhere where they can play or the system fits them better. And we will – I don't know how many quarterbacks we have. We got on the depth chart, but we will probably still look at one for the portal, get an experienced guy because of what we went through this year. Like, gosh, you hope it will never happen again. But if it does happen, it would sure help to have another experienced guy that could possibly win some games for us. So we will look at the portal. But we look at the portal every day for every position all year.
Keon Hutchins, who said he decommitted a few days ago, and
then he did.
Signs today. What kind of put you back into the question with him?
Hell, you'd have to ask him. I mean, we didn't like up the money or anything. You know what I'm saying? It was like, here we are, and then I think sometimes they get when it gets time to sign and they get all kinds of phone calls and stuff, and their mind gets, kind of wacky. And there's most of them have agents or families to help them, but some of them don't. And I think he has, people to help him. But can you imagine everybody that's in their ear nowadays with all the stuff that's going on, and they're getting promised this and promised that, and they can't. They try to sort through it all, and so it's. I guess it's a good problem for them, but it still can be, most of the guys that we're recruiting, of course, we're not their only offer, right? You know what I mean? So they've got other options, but I tell them so do we. Like, we're not gonna. If I'm gonna sign 2 wideouts, I'm not just recruiting 2 wideouts. We're gonna recruit probably 4 times as many. If I want to sign 2 quarterbacks, I'm going to probably have to recruit 5 or 6. So it kind of works both ways. But my staff did a good job. And again, this was just the first year, and we cast a bigger net than probably most people because we have to. But when we get this thing cranked up like we're going to get it cranked up, you'll have more visibility, which we have. We have a lot of games on TV, whatever. But we're going to get it to the point where you're always going to have to recruit, but some schools get to select more than they recruit. You know what I mean? And we want to be able to do that too. So we'll be able to get there.
How much does having only one portal window impact the offseason? Don't we have one?
Well, the one portal, I'm not sure. I'll have to ask me in 6 months what I thought of that. I mean, you got to evaluate the right guys because, if you come out of spring ball with some injuries and all that, you don't have another portal thing to fix your stuff up. So you really have to evaluate your off season and your, what you're doing, who you're bringing in your portal period in January, because there's not going to be another one. So that changes the dynamic a little bit from last year, where like, geez, well, if we don't get, if we after spring ball we find out we need this or this, you better find out what you need before spring ball.
We got time for one more question.
So since you opened that door just a little bit, you had a lot of great activity, obviously, over the past 2 to 3 days. Were there any additional negotiations, upping of things, or was it, hey, this is your deal, this is what we talked about?
Yeah, there was most of ours was kind of like where we were at was where we were at. I don't know, there might have been a little bit of adjustment here and there, but not too much, because we thought we were at a pretty good place with all that. But there's also, like I said, we're not done recruiting, and not just a couple guys that may be today, but there's 2 or 3 more that we could have. And then, you have a February signing period and you got the transfer portal period. So there's a little bit of an exhale, like, okay, well, we got 40 some here, but we're going to have 25 more spots. I mean, can you imagine that? Like back in the day, you just signed 20 to 25, and hey, now we get ready to. It's a little different dynamic, but I enjoy it. I don't mind telling you. I probably talk too much. Like a lot of our guys are finishing up finals. They're doing well. We got great academic support, and some guys are finishing up early and want to know when they're going home. A lot of them want to go home right now, but I don't think I want to let them go home early if they can, because we're supposed to be practicing for a bowl game or a championship game. So why would we reward us, I say coaches too, for not being there, right? So let's just stay here and work as a coaches. Like, it's a dead period in December, but that don't mean you can't still be working. So we're going to keep working recruiting and working on what we're going to do in the off season and be better next year.
Thank you, Coach.
Okay.